Thanks for joining us. My guest today is former Police Chief David Magnusson. Thank you for joining us, Chief.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
So here it is. Today is a Monday. All right, some exciting stuff going around throughout the country, and for us in particular to Florida. Let's talk a little bit about this whole conversation we're hearing about Cuba and what's going on. So tell us.
Well, I heard from another news source, and being a news junkie, as I'm sure you are, and others, you get word that now there's an issue with Cuba that they bought or they're in possession of a lot of drones used in Iran. Maybe it came from Iran, maybe it came from Russia. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But it's certainly something for people in South Florida to sit up a bit more straight in their seats. When you hear things like this. Now, keep in mind, and I as I usually do when we talk, I'll go back to boxing metaphors. Cuba's on the ropes. There's no ref to stop the fight, or maybe it would have stopped already, but they're on the ropes. They're ready to go. The Marxism, communism, it's a failed ideology. It hung on way too long there. And with that, though, will come desperation from those that were in power. And I say this only based on history of other governments or tyrannies that fall, okay? And sometimes people do desperate things in desperate times. And I can't think of any more desperate time in the last 50, 60 years in Cuba than now. The Cuban Missile Crisis in '62 maybe stands out a little bit. And there were some lessons to be learned from that as well that certainly can be transposed into today's times with the threat that exists.
So what is your concern about the drones? We're here in South Florida. All right. And Cuba's from Miami is probably 120 miles away from Key West 90.
Again, they were saying Guantanamo, which would seem obvious. And again, this or the Keys. But, this would be a fool's folly on their part because there'd be nothing left of the island to dig out. I mean, if they played those games. And again, it could just be false bravado. It could be made up. We don't know. What I'm getting at, though, is you shouldn't, even when something sounds a little far-fetched or, it can't be, never negate the possibility that, but it could happen.
Does October 7th mean anything to you?
Correct. And nobody on October 6th thought about it.
Right.
Nobody thought about on September 11th, on September 10th.
Yes.
And that's nobody thought about Pearl Harbor on December 6th. They said it could happen. I mean, Japanese were getting aggressive and they were making threats, but nobody thought this was going to happen. Yeah. And so when you deal with history and the lessons of history, you just want to be a little bit more cautious or keep an ear and eye open. I mean, how difficult is it for drones if they were launched to cause some damage?
So war has changed the way we conduct wars and the way we conduct police work and everything. It's changed because of the drones.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly you don't have to go any further than Ukraine and Russia. And listen, I mean, can Ukraine beat Russia? No. Can they hold on long enough and make sure Russia doesn't win? Yeah, and they're doing so.
It's amazing because we all thought 3.5 years ago it would have been over.
I will credit American leadership at that time that stepped up and solidified NATO. And in the interim, got two neutral countries, one very near and dear to my heart, Sweden, into NATO. And they all stood by, especially Poland, and they all stood by and said, no, we are here to support Ukraine. And I think that went a long way.
So let's talk a little bit. We have elections coming up. The next 2 years is going to be consumed because people are getting more aggressive. We see that. And down here in South Florida, of course, one of the big issues is deportation and self-deportation of a lot of people. I understand there's some figure of it down here, 30 to 40,000 people are gone, either self-deported or by the government. And it's had such a major impact. If you look at the public schools, you can see a lot of the kiddies. There's less of them. We know our friends in Doral tell us there's less people in the stores, less people in small restaurants. That impacts every possible thing. A friend of mine's in the roofing business, and Michael, we can't find workers anymore like we used to. He says, we find somebody, $450 a day up on the roof. I wouldn't do it. But you know what? There are a lot of people that would want to, and what that means, just for simplicity, is it's going to start costing us more and more delays of getting stuff done. And besides the human factor, which is the biggest part, and we have friends that don't have papers, and that's lots of reasons for it. And it is really significant for us here. And I see that the alligator Alcatraz is going to close. There's a question about the $600 million the state hopes to get from the federal government. We'll see if we get that money back. We had an event, by the way, over at Casa Cuba the other day. It was wonderful. We had Eileen Higgins, who was the mayor, and we have what's called a photo line where the presenter is standing in front of some banners, and people come up and they want to get their picture taken. Typically, I'm stand nearby so I can slow the people down if they're trying to talk too long to the person, because we have 20, 30, 40 people in line. So some other people were handling it. I'm walking around the restaurant, and I come back and somebody whispers in my ear, the lady over there, points not Higgins, but over there, was making a stink. And the lady's now having a discussion with an aide, I believe it was an aide to Higgins. And the conversation was fine. And it was, you can see it was since I walk over and I start talking to the woman. And I turn around, there's somebody with their camera like this right at me. And then there's some guy standing there, the same thing. I said, what you're doing is really inappropriate. They won't say anything. I said, it's really inappropriate. By the way, this is a private event. No, it's not. I said, did you RSVP? Yes. I said, well, it's still a private event. I said, you have to leave. So finally, a policeman escorted her out. Mm-hmm. They came there to disrupt it, period, right? And what they were filming initially was the woman talking with Higgins about deportation. And Higgins finally said, I've got nothing to do with it. I've got nothing to do with it. And so it's all being filmed. And so at this point, it's about 30 seconds. So what appears on social media was, you probably saw there was a really pretty disgusting text. It's Instagram. It so happens that it was a bot that did that. But the conversation that started because of that is the problem. You had one person, and then if you follow some of it, they were having a discussion. And this is the way news gets altered a little bit. They said, I stopped somebody from talking to the mayor. That is not the case at all.
I'll never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yes.
Right.
And count on it, right? Because when I arrived, that woman who was talking was already off somewhere else. And there's a video of that showing her, but that's not what came out. Got a call from somebody who's in the political arena. Let me guess what happened, Michael. The woman was over there talking too much, and somebody asked her to. And then that's what happens, all right? Yeah. And there's a place for all of that, wherever that is, all right? And so a couple of weeks ago was an incident with Channel 10 where Mayor Cava's county, the policeman was there, and he said, you need to go over there. And there was a conversation about who was touching who. All blown out of proportion. But it goes to show that people are getting more and more aggressive. And as this election gets, all these elections get closer, I suspect that there will be more of those type of things. Certainly there's this concern, how aggressive is it going to get? And we know that all sides get stupid, all right?
You get less intelligent the farther you are out on the fringes, be it the left or the right. Common sense, whether it's Republican or Democrat, is more towards the middle. A little liberal, a little conservative. When you go out there, be careful.
Yes. And when I saw these people that were there to they were clearly they were there to instigate.
Agents provocateurs.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. There's one guy standing there, wouldn't say a word, like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I said that's so inappropriate, right?
Personal space is gone. It's been erased.
Yes, and when you see that happening, I think it's a normal thing to say, why are you right here? We need some stuff in there. And fortunately, I had my wits about me. And I said, I'm glad you signed up. All right. And then I walked the other way because she was the person who they were trying to film was already, somewhere else. And when this woman who was talking to Higgins, she was crying. If somebody in her family got deported or whatever, then I hurt for them. All right. And And there's very little that we each can do with that, except for make a change in Washington. Go to Congress, wherever it is, and see if we can get some that's changed. And so again, we're going to have 2.5 years of it. I can see it's picking up. All right, people are getting more assertive and more aggressive. Everybody wants their point made. And I think here last there were some other shootings as well. If we can get onto that, I forget. There have been so many, unfortunately.
Yeah, you just set your calendar to it. There's the odds are going to say there's going to be a mass shooting somewhere. I mean, I think one of them was family related, but he killed 7 or 8 of his children. I mean, that's a mass shooting, and I don't want to hear say, well, it's family. Yeah, but what? I mean, he killed 8 kids. I mean, this is the world we're living in with violence and hatred. The hatred thing is that, the shootings are one thing, but the hatred, and sometimes it goes hand in hand. And sometimes you have the hatred minus the violence per se, where people are attacking people because of a religion. They're attacking because of a race or a lifestyle. That's scary. Yeah. That's incredibly scary. And
when you talk about scary, when you look with people, the prices, everything is skyrocketing. And the thing that we all use a lot of, at least, is fuel. When you go to the gas station and you're paying for a tank of fuel, gas, another $25, another $20, start multiplying that out with the other costs. It does get stressful for a lot of people. And I don't drive much, but the other day I went, where did that $75 go?
Yeah.
In an instant, it was there. And so I tell our folks here, listen, don't be honking your horn at people. Because when you're there, somebody might get aggravated. You might get aggravated to figure out some other way to communicate, with people.
Well, the road rage is nothing new. Trying times is nothing new. There's a lot of stressors out there. Nobody can argue that, whether it's prices, whether it's concerns overseas with war, whether it's this recent concern now with Cuba, and the part that if and when, or let's just say when, Cuba falls, you're going to have a migration here that's going to put Mariel to shame, probably, because a lot of people are going to take to the sea and get out of there. So I'm sure there's a plan in place to curb that, right? You would hope, but where are they going? They're not going to float up the coast to North Carolina or South Carolina. They're coming right here,
right,
or the Keys, and right here, and so those are other stresses for the leadership throughout South Florida that'll have to take into account, because it's going to happen all of a sudden. You're going to wake up one morning and say the end has begun, and by that time it'll be celebratory. There will be those on the island that are hardened Marxists that aren't celebrating much of anything. We need to concern ourselves with that, but it's going to be celebratory, but it's also going to be a massive amount of people all at once coming here. It's, God bless them, but we're going to have to pick it up.
So for the people that miss it, Mariel was one in the middle 80s?
It was May of 1980. And again, everything happened at once. You had that. You had the Miami riots right around the same time. It was just about within a week or so of each other, all at the same time, which really impacted South Florida.
So think about now. Here we are 40 years later, right? Mm-hmm. And you have some of the states and probably in the country, really tall buildings, 3 1,000-foot buildings plus are going up downtown, which is amazing. All these multi-billionaires. Before somebody was a billionaire, there was like a lot. Now it's like, how many zeros is after that? The 2 or the 3 or the 4. It really is amazing to see the changes that we are all going through.
Well, Miami is the place to go. I mean, it is the place to go. It for a variety of reasons. There's some places that don't appreciate people that have money in some cities. And guess what? Then those people that have that money can go elsewhere, and hopefully it's to Miami. It's good for Miami. It's good for the economy. It's good for everything.
It really is amazing when you see, Coke & Grove 30 years ago was like, you should be careful, move down there. That's where you go and you do whatever, right? Yeah. And not all of a sudden, but over many years, it's changed and it's really significant. And I was downtown Miami again. It is amazing.
Well, Brickell now is really the downtown. I mean, I remember downtown, you had McCrory's and what they called downtown. It shut at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And yeah, you had some banking buildings down in Brickell, but you go down now and you walk around there. It's like walking in Boston. It's like walking in New York City.
Absolutely.
It's a real city. It really looks good.
When I used to run, it was a corporate event, and I had my little boy with me. He was about this big. And we had to park about 7 or 8 blocks west of Biscayne. And when we left, all right, and we had to walk, I was really scared. All right. I had my son up here, and hold him. And I said, God, where's the car? Where's the car? Now there are literally thousands of people walking on those streets all the time. It's incredible.
It's vibrant. It doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
It's like a Sinatra song, a town that doesn't sleep, right? Yeah.
So I was in my son's place. Outside his window is the beautiful expressway, whatever they call it, that goes over to the Port Everglades, all that with the design.
You mean Port of Miami?
Yeah, over there.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be done for another 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But it is significant, all right? And it's beautiful. It's architecture. I don't know how they're going to be able to move all the cars, but it's being built to handle those cars of the future. Let's talk a little bit about Waymo. Have you taken a Waymo recently?
No, I've seen a few go by. I just, when I see them turn in front of me, I laugh. I don't know what to do. I've seen them. I guess it's okay. I don't know.
I went in one the other day. My grandson's in the back with my wife. She's holding on. I'm in the front seat filming the steering wheel. My 10-year-old grandson says, Grandpa, enjoy the moment. Put down the camera. I said, okay. And it was unique.
Yeah.
And there's so much equipment on those things. Is it safe? I guess it's as safe as most.
Well, if you've seen them drive in South Florida, yeah, it's probably just as safe.
I'm not sure I would feel comfortable doing 70 miles an hour on the Palmetto Expressway, but I'm thinking 40 miles an hour.
If you've been on the Palmetto, you can't do 70.
Sorry.
You can't. It's gridlock, constant.
So I was on the Palmetto coming back from North Miami, and it was about 4 o'clock. Around 103rd Street. We were surrounded by 18-wheelers. There, and there. Right. And it's like, and you could feel the heat.
Yeah.
Coming from the sun and the trucks there. It really is. We do have a mobility issue, let me put it that way. And I know Miami-Dade County CITT is trying to fix our mobility issue. I think down here, we just have to accept there are a lot of cars, a lot of people, and it's just tough to get around. And when you go downtown, you see people on their motor scooters and their little things, and then you have those little robots. I don't know if you don't go downtown, I don't know where you see them. I forget there's a name for these things.
Yeah.
And it goes and it beeps you, and then you come downstairs and you pick it up. It's really lots of difference. Yeah. We're getting more and more involved with AI, and we've hired a company to help us automate some things with us. Very excited about that. And those things we do today, we just haven't automated them. And that's the big difference. How do you get this stuff so that it can be done simpler, or it can be done, without you having your hands on it? People think that it's this panacea. No, you still have to create the content. You still have to have that. And you still have to have somebody to help manage it. So this is not like you just do it one time. No. It's like your website. You do it one time, but then you have to maintain it.
Right.
And when it breaks, who are you going to call? So we're giving it a big shot on that. And we're excited to move forward. It's concerning our shows and how we're going to continue editing them and distributing them. Good. All right. So here it is again. This is May. We have our the hurricane season starts in a month or two. Right. God willing, we'll have the season like we did last year, which was very little. Yeah. And I see a lot of the vintage condos. I got that term from Peter Zielinski. Thank you, Peter, which are the old ones, the old condos, which are historically in very good locations, all right, and very old. And these condo associations, let's just take our money and leave. So we're going to, according to Peter, we're going to see more and more of that, right? And then these great big buildings.
Right.
Of course, more traffic.
Yeah.
All right. So I understand you used to be a boxer, a hobbyist, but nevertheless a boxer.
Yeah.
You still doing a little bit?
No. I mean, I do the workout. I got the rotator cuff surgery, so hitting the bag is out. 64 right now, so I mean, you got to let that go in the past and relish on the memories, or make you sound better than you really were.
What was and what is?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. You went through it, you enjoy it. It's in the past.
Yes.
Take pictures, movies. I have them, and it's all good. But move on to something else, and that's the fun part of it. You can say you did it, and you did it for a while. And it was enjoyable. I enjoy that.
When I used to run, and ran for 25 years, I said, and I kept saying to myself, you don't do it now, when are you going to do it?
Well, yeah.
To your point.
To the point.
Which is at some point where you're not going to be able to do it or to risk doing it.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was thinking about property taxes and I fell. And I went right about like on my arm there, broke a couple ribs.
That's what happens when you think about property taxes.
So speaking of that, funny you should bring that up. So the state is considering eliminating property taxes either for all homestead property or for older folks, right? Meaning, I guess, over the age of 65. Our system of paying for stuff is so built on property taxes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we're going to replace that money for the services that we're getting. You heard anything about that?
I have not, but I have the same question. You know, everything works a certain way now. If you remove that, how is it going to work? And I don't know. I mean, brighter minds than I in this area perhaps can figure it out. Everything sounds good, but what is it they're saying? The devil's in the details?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It is costly. It is costly here. Living's expensive. You know, it's par for the course.
Okay. By the way, so we have a show every 2 weeks on AI. As a matter of fact, the guy that came in several different shows he did. So I'm watching him. All right. It was the best interview. He's out here and I'm watching him, actually interviewing him to figure out if we're going to hire him. And that's how we did it, was because of the relationship that existed before, rather than starting it from that for that particular moment. And there are going to be, again, a lot of changes with that are going to affect a lot of things. So one of the great things that's happened with all these rich people coming to Miami is that a lot of the private schools are packed, right?
Right.
And the other side of that is they have waiting lines. 5 years ago, they used to have to advertise.
Yeah.
All right. That's the other side of that.
Well, with progress comes things that you might not have thought about a while back. Right,
yes.
Right.
Okay, so what else we got? We got 5 minutes left.
The anti-Semitism going up. Do you hear what with the...
Okay, so the robot that created this, it immediately said, oh, Michael Miller, that Jew. All right?
Right.
Power drunk tell people to stop. And he made reference to Israel and IPAC, anti-Semitism right in there. And you realize when people say that, whether there was a robot or itself, I believe it was a robot, all right? But even if it isn't, all right, or even if it was, creates the conversation. They select that. The bad guys select that to do that, all right? And then people see it, and then they hear it again. Oh, so it's okay to do that. Rabbi Harling just recently was walking down the street. It happened again in 2024. He's with his little boy. Somebody made an anti-Semitic remark. He's walking down the street. Somebody yells that out. Yeah. It's happening more and more.
It's almost become acceptable. Now it's seeping into robots. You see, the hatred is vile. If you caught the news today, what Jared Moskowitz got a voicemail in his office that was about as repulsive as can be. The hatred for Jews is nothing new. I'm a Jew, you know, but I hold a different opinion here. And it's not to condone violence, because I don't. Spent 37 years in law enforcement. But like what happened on the campuses and what happens now, what happened up in Brooklyn the other day when they stormed into a neighborhood with vile anti-Semitism, people need to start fighting back. They need to start now, in the sense that you keep backing up, you're going to end up at the edge of a cliff. And this is what's going on here. These anti-Semites are bullies. You're not going to have one by themselves unless they're in a car and they yell something like to the rabbi and take off. They're bullies, so they're going to outnumber the people. They're not going to start nothing when they're outnumbered. They're bullies. And really, you know, I take no quarter, but I give no quarter when it comes to hatred. Whether it's against blacks, gays, what have you, Muslims, Jews, hatred is vile, and people need to put their foot down.
After reading that, it was offensive to me, because my religion had nothing to do with that. None. Zero. It had nothing to do with that conversation that took place that caused that robot or that person to do that.
Because it's just going to grab at whatever it can. It's hoping it'll hang on to something that other people can leech onto. Leech is a good word. Jew, black, gay. They're going to pick because these are bullies. They're swine. Okay, they want to attack people not have an interesting conversation, not to say that Mr. Miller was this or that, but they got to insert the word Jew into it. Why?
If they would have taken out the 3 words, valid argument. It happened to have it wrong.
Right.
But they couldn't help themselves.
Why do that? And again, it goes back to what I'm saying. You take the Kingsian theory, the nonviolent approach, but you stand up to the hatred. You see what's going on. The hatred's off the chain. Anti-Semitism, what happened in the campuses a year or 2 ago. I mean, who stood up for those students there that were getting maligned? There should have been people to stand up there and really go nose to nose with these SOBs.
So when I read that, I thought about 5 years ago, I was at Johnson's Soul Food in Liberty, Overtown. I was with 3 very successful African-Americans, Hispanic me, and they started off, it was live, Michael, you're the white guy. I said, oh my God. I said, I've never heard that before. She says, nobody's ever said that. Of course they have, Michael. You just haven't heard them. So that's what I was thinking about the other day. So I'm hearing it more. I don't know if I'm a little bit more perceptive, a little more watching it more, because it's been so often. And it was like, oh my goodness. So I'm seeing it more and more, and it's really disturbing. And I'm still processing
it. Shouldn't be tolerated. And let me just give you a historical context that goes a little bit away from the anti-Semitism, but in World War II, and I'm paraphrasing a little, but not by much. So a high-ranking commander gets sent home from the European theater for something he said to an English person, an English soldier, a counterpart. It was Eisenhower that sent him home. So he goes before Eisenhower. And he says, listen, the English guy stood up for him. He goes, no, he just called me an English SOB during the course of he called me an SOB during the course of a fight. And Eisenhower said, no, I understand he called you an English SOB in the course of the fight. So my decision stands. And he says, there is a big difference. There's one thing if I can call you something derogatory. If I insert the word black or Jew or something along those words, that makes it far more egregious. And as Eisenhower said, no, you called him an English SOB, and that made all the difference in the world. He shipped him home. That tells you something. You can say all the things you want. It may not go over well, but you don't insert hatred based on religion, color, lifestyle, right?
Or gender.
Or gender, of course.
So when I think about the name a man might call a woman if he's really mad at her, right? I'm thinking, why is that important? All right, because you're mad at her because whatever it is, but that expression adds in. You're right, that extra fuel.
That extra few words. So that's I call that, and I try to curb myself, and I do the Eisenhower rule. He had many, but that's a good one. You could say it, but don't inject even the nationality. This was the nationality because we were allies, and it did a lot to. It would have broken up a lot of.
Really, Eisenhower did that, huh?
He did that.
Wow.
He sent them home, not because of what the SOB part. An English SOB, but that tells you his character. And he also you fracture an alliance, any alliance, doesn't have to be wartime or military. You fracture an alliance, nothing good happens.
That's my lesson for today.
There you go.
Thank you, David.
Yes, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
My regards to your wife.
Thank you.
And Anzoni is on the keyboard right over there. Okay. All right. So let's do the Eisenhower rule. All right. Tell them right in there.
Well, the Eisenhower rule, listen, say nice things, but if you're not going to say nice things, and sometimes it gets heated during the course of an argument, a debate, keep it friendly. Don't insert other words that there's no need to insert because you've crossed the Eisenhower rule and you may get shipped home.
Okay. Next. I had my granddaughter on my knee the other day and I said, sweetheart, remember what the Disney rule is. When someone hugs you, don't stop until they do. Have a great day. Bye now.
You want to launch a podcast, but you got no clue how or where? CNews TV makes it easy. Choose from one of our 4 podcast studios, Studio A, B, C, or D. We provide the professional space, the equipment, the crew, the know-how, and even a host if you need one. Book a studio now at sales@cnews.net.